if the laws of physics don't hold, okay, you would agree that the programmers, we're going to call them the programmers, whatever they would be,
Sure.
they would prescriptively design our universe such that they would make the laws for us, right? So whatever they say goes. If they want C to be this value, then it's this value. If they want to have this happen, if these conditions are met, then that happens, especially in a programming routine, right? If you look at assembly language, something like a J and Z, right? Jump with not the zero flag carryover. That's a conditional. So it's saying, okay, do a short jump if and only if these conditions are met. So if that's the case, that the universe is prescriptively designed for us, to us, we can't change those parameters at the inside of a code unless you have some kind of you know what? You know what? Now that I think about it, you can't have code that actually changes itself, right? You can actually have morphological type code.
Yeah, it can be done.
There's a technical term for it, but code that can morph into something else. Could we then, you think, hack the system to change these fundamental constants and describe them rather than just describe them? Because that would be a cool thing. Now we're going down some really crazy territory, but that'd be cool.
So that's, there's a sense in which it's worth figuring out the simulation question just for that possibility, right? If we could actually change the gravitational constant anytime we felt like it, that would be pretty awesome.
Oh man, that would be like true anti-gravity, true too. But then you have other problems because you start changing the gravitational constant. All the other natural units are affected by that. Matter of fact, you can quantitatively derive all natural units from. If you have a certain amount of natural units, you can actually use quantitative analysis to get other units. It's really cool how natural units work that way. It requires matrix theory, and I've done it actually, so I know it works. But if you start messing with that big G, then
so it may be that, the programmers have tried 15,000 different values of G, and this is the only one that's compatible with all the other constants they want to have in the simulation. So we would be destroying our own simulation from within. No, it'd be a bummer.
We would destroy ourselves literally, huh? We would crash the system.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
Blue screen of
we
death.
Would crash the system.
Yeah, blue screen of death.
Yeah, so there's the end of the universe for you. Yeah.
That's heat death. Well, see, isn't it kind of weird though? Excuse me. Well, you would agree that if this was the case and the way it's postulated that the reason why we're in a simulation would be something along the lines that advanced simulations wants to know their own history, right? Or some kind of history of the universe. There's that's right. So this is, I think, we should, but there's several possibilities, right? I mean, what are all the different things that we make simulations for? We do it for entertainment. We do it for scientific research. We do it just to try out weird things, right? We've got computer CS students who are just learning how to do it, and they make crappy simulations along the way. We could be one of those. Just chucked away. But a simulation does imply intentionality.
Yep. You're back.
Yay!
Right.
Well, this reality has flat earthers, so I can tell you right now, whoever designed it, they were shitty at what they did.
And Trump.
Well, and that could. That's right. I mean, if you think of the classic, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? The Earth is a big computer whose purpose is just to calculate the meaning of life, and all of us on top of it are just side effects of that computation. Right there, the programmers didn't care about us at all. Our universe could have some purpose that's not connected to us in any way. We're just a weird bit of buggy code that's floating around.
We're an afterthought. Yeah, we're an afterthought.
That would mean that they put the elements that would that were needed to create life just in the universe with no advanced knowledge that we would be part of the simulation, and because those elements were together in the program that they created, we just are a side effect of those things, combining and eventually creating us.
Dude,
wow,
you can hear me now,
dude. He's literally saying,
"I live."
Yay! He's literally saying we're an emergent property of the program.
We could be.
Yeah. Phillip.
Yeah, here's the
go ahead and
go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay. What if I had an idea? I think to make this, because at some point this argument, because the idea that the simulation would be so perfect we can't figure it out anyway. What if I think our universe is real, let's say, but life is the simulation? For instance, we have no idea why life began, right? That's still a mystery. I haven't checked the
more or less, yeah,
the blog lately. And so is it possible that, for instance, we play a game called the Game of Life, right? We can create even The Sims or anything like that within our real world. So is it possible that we are some sort of evolve, we're built to evolve. So everything is real to us and all the things are new. There's no rules. We just exist in the universe, and the universe is real. We're just like self-replicating robots, basically. Biobots.
Yeah.
My mind is broken.
And again, there's this question of intent then, right? So let's say we do convince ourselves we are living in a simulation, and we're sure that there are programmers that made the simulation. Can we learn anything about the programmers from within the simulation? What can we tell about the programmers from this place that they've stuck us?
I will say that the religious people, let's say, have been trying to do what I imagine. I have an image of the Sims turning around and like looking up at the screen and putting their hands up and saying, why, or knocking on the glass, and I think they've had, obviously to my mind, they haven't had any success with that really. And so we need a way to access, right? We have to communicate. And that's something people have been trying to do, actually, trying to communicate with the masters of the...
Yeah, I got it.
We need a hacker
They're not
or a virus for the code.
Yep.
That's what we need.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
How would you introduce it? I mean, how would you even begin to hack that kind of system?
Oh, one of the guys gets pissed off. One of the guys gets pissed off and decides that he wants to revolt, and he sends a secret message to the creation and lets us know how to do that, obviously.
Now, here's the thing. If we are a video game, then we might not just be sort of one single benign simulation where all the parts are working together. I think if we are a simulation, it is more like a video game, and we are all being represented by different, every one of us is the avatar of some player.
Oh boy,
and
that's all I need.
Isn't there a movie? There was a movie recently about that.
Some players don't have very creative, or have just given up, because there are some people that you can show clear examples of. They have just completely given up on the game.
Those are the non-player. Those are the
or maybe we're all the mobs, right? As Phillip said earlier, we're all the NPCs. There's 2 people with paid subscriptions in South America, and we're all just here in case they want to come visit New York City.
Of course.
Like the Truman Show.
Here's the problem that I kind of foresee, because we're all going to look at it from an individual perspective. From my perspective, I would be the paid subscription in some way, or somebody has a paid subscription. They're playing my avatar. I exist. You all are the NPCs, because I would default into solipsism in that way, right? Because I would have no way of knowing you actually are a real avatar of some kind, because you exist in some capacity.
That's what intelligible
or not.
That's what happens when you go online to play a game, right? You might not know who's human and who's a bot. In fact, I remember when Quake Arena came out. It was one of the first games that you could literally go online and start to play people online. The one way I could tell the humans, seemed to me, was that they were much more aggressive, and some of them were even cheating. And their characters really acted in a different way than the computer characters acted. I don't know if that's still the case, but that could be very well be what's happening, right? How many players are there? Is the question.
Yeah.
And why do they keep putting quarters in the machine?
Would we be able to tell who the main character is by if they are respawning after they die? Right.
Yes, respawning.
We're all just here, right? So if you know anybody who's respawning.
The Buddha, Jesus, anyone else claim to respawn?
Yes,
that's 2. Buddha versus Jesus.
Lazarus. And well, there's like
Lazarus,
4 in the Bible that actually.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. Yep, there's a whole handful of them.
Well, I don't remember their names. One of them I don't think even had a name. Go ahead.
How would you like code in for things like consciousness though, or emotion and the just the way that we react to certain things? I feel like that's something that I don't know how you would program that into something. When you look at the Sims, they do things, but for the most part, they're just kind of robotic in their day to day. They go to a point, they do whatever you instructed them to do, and then they don't. But we seem to have an extra level to that in that we can create. You know what I'm saying? You don't see a sim on its own going out there and just putting together a computer.
Right. So this is a profound question that, say, AI researchers and neuroscientists are trying to calculate is everything that happens in our brain in some sense procedurally generated? Can we reduce everything to a series of ones and zeros? And this is a good way to get a fight started at like an AI conference. Is you say, so who here thinks we'll eventually be able to simulate consciousness? And half the room gets upset, and half the room thinks it's great.
Excellent.
And then one guy says,
"Is it a possibility?"
Yeah, it's totally a possibility. I mean, there's this crazy game called Dwarf Fortress, which is a super intense, detailed simulation. And the dwarfs in there actually have likes and dislikes, and they get upset if they don't eat their favorite food, and they're happy when they pet their cat. And it produces all kinds of crazy emergent behavior that looks a lot like sort of crazy people walking around doing things.
Isn't that that's kind of, I guess, coded in ahead of time, right? Mm-hmm. Like, are they actually reacting though? You know what I'm saying, or is that something?
They do react. I mean, it's deterministic, right? If you start with the same dwarf in the same situation, they'll go through the same day, but they will actually go through and interact with each other, and unexpected things happen, and that's part of the joy of the game. Is seeing the bizarre things that happen.
Okay.
Now, here's an idea. I feel like if we are a simulation, DNA is significant in figuring out the answer, right? Like DNA, if anything appears to be code in this world, it's DNA.
Is funny right? You should say that. No, it's just someone here has strong feelings about that.
Yeah, funny you should say that. Steve?
What's that? Sorry, what? I got sidetracked for a second.
Is DNA a code?
Yeah.
Oh, matter of fact, that's what I just got sidetracked on. Somebody just mentioned me. I had to respond real quick. We're going to be talking about that with John Perry from Stated Clearly. Matter of fact, that's actually who I'm just responded to, actually. Coincidental. Matrix thing. Could that be like programmed that way? Have someone
right.
I was actually talking to John. Exactly. Wow,
he's saying DNA is a code.
I'm going to be arguing that DNA is not a code, and it's funny. John just actually said DNA is not a code, so he agreed. John and I are on the same page on a lot of this. He says DNA is not a code. His argument is that the genetic code is the code, and I will argue that the symbolism for the genetic code is a code, but the way that we look at the codons, the way that we actually look at the way the codons are read as it's translated in the ribosome is actually a cipher. As a matter of fact, I've talked to 3 PhDs in genetics and biology. All 3 of them so far agree it should have been called a genetic cipher rather than genetic code. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be arguing that genetic cipher is actually more technically precise than it become called a genetic code, except if you're dealing with the actual symbology of the CTA and G. Those are actually a code, and I'll explain that in my presentation.
Okay, let me take 100 steps back.
You just say you agree. Just say you agree, Phil. That's all you got to do.
No, because again, in terms of learning science, this is where this is all very useful for me. I confess, and I really need to just take some time, and I'm going to take a class or really sit down with a book and read it through. But like, I don't quite understand the basics of DNA. So, for instance, you said DNA is not a code. So I know what DNA is, the physical thing, the double helix thing inside every cell.
The molecule itself, right.
Right, molecule. Okay. You said the DNA is not a code, but the genetic code is the code.